Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. We are the Rotary Club of Gainesville. Today is Tuesday, June 14th. We're so happy to have all of you here with us at the Cade Museum. At this time, so guests and visiting Rotarians, if you're joining us virtually on Zoom, please identify yourself in the chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, we ask that you register your participation by sending an email to info@rotary.org. Pete, are you ready? Okay, come on.
They asked a 105-year-old woman, a reporter went out to interview her for her birthday. They asked her if she could name a couple of things or one thing at least that was good about being 105. And so she thought for a minute and she said, no peer pressure. Okay, I got another one. I told my wife that she really needed to, instead of trying to ignore and dismiss her mistakes, that she ought to embrace them, that she'd be a better person. So she hugged me. We're going to sing God Bless America today. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Join me in pledging allegiance to the flag and thanking the person for moving the flag up today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pete. At this time, Kevin Thorpe, I believe you are with us on Zoom. Time for an invocation.
May we pray. Lord, we are beyond grateful for this day. Thank you for each morning that you provide. Thank you for each new opportunity that you give us as a club, not only to join together, but to band together in our commitment to making the lives of others better. Thank you for today's speaker. Thank you for this very special topic. Pray that you bless Dr. Michael, his family, and all those he is connected with. Allow this talk to be informative and transformational for all those who are present. We claim it done in advance for your sake and for your glory. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kevin. You may be seated. At this time, we would like to introduce any visiting Rotarians or guests of Rotarians, and we will bring the microphone around.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. Today we have Phoebe and Richard Miles joining us from Washington, D.C.
Welcome, Phoebe and Richard.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. Today, I am extremely excited to introduce Johan Raji. He is a new commercial realtor in our office, and I am super excited to see what he does. And if you have any commercial needs, please call me and I'll bring them in.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm honored to have with me today my grandson, Sawyer Joplin.
Well, welcome, Sawyer. We're happy to have you.
Thanks, Jason. Today, I'm happy to introduce Lee Purvis. He's a psychologist here in Gainesville, and also teaches at the University of Florida in psychology. He's a guest of Richard Allen's, and we just met. So, Lee, welcome. Thank you.
Welcome, Lee.
Hi, fellow Rotarians. My guest today is Tim Rourke. Tim is one of my business partners at Castro. Tim Rourke.
Welcome, Tim. We're glad to have you. Okay. All right, so we do have one announcement. Greg Young, if you want to come up, and I think Jacob might also be coming if he's here to talk about maybe just a little convention that you went to. Okay.
Yes, Melanie. Thanks, Melanie. Yes, Jacob and I, and also Richard Allen attended the Rotary International Convention in Houston recently. We all got back midweek last week. And the experience, this was my second one, went to the one in Atlanta, which was wonderful as well. If you ever get an opportunity to go to one of these, I highly recommend them because it just inspires you, the talks, the education you get about how Rotary works in the world. You see the impacts that we make worldwide, and just you meet the most wonderful people like members of our club. Just imagine that times about 1,000, okay? And Jacob, it was his first experience, so I want to let him come up and speak. But I will say the House of Fellowship, or the House of Friendship, excuse me, that is amazing. It's a huge exhibit hall. If you've been out to the Houston George R. Brown Convention Center, it's a huge place. So this is a big convention center, and it is full of Rotarians, you know, talking about sustainable Cambodia. Richard had a booth. We'll be sending a picture out at some point of that booth and all the people he's brought together as a team. So anyway, it's just inspiring. It's something that really gets you drinking the Kool-Aid. I've drunk it now. So anyway, I want Jacob to have some time to speak about his experience.
Thank you, Greg. Sorry, I'm good. I'm coming over the cold from Houston. When it say Houston, we had a problem on our way back. I was on a taxi coming back to Miami, and I waited for 3 hours because there was a storm. So didn't make it back, but what make it more fun was my first time attending the RI. And let me tell you, I grow so much from your support, from the leadership of David. And I want to be very, very transparent. I almost didn't make it, but I want to thank you, President David. There was challenges with finance, with his help, and I was able to make it. And the experience of House of Worship took me 2 days. 2 days to just see that. So I just want to thank you, and please, I would encourage next year in Melbourne, in Australia. Never been there. My brother is there. It's a great experience, but what I was proud is our club is on the world map with Richard Allen. I was amazed about the amount of people who came, and what made the difference was these people actually went to Cambodia. And just let you know, I'm so inspired to really take what learning from your club, learning from basically Richard, and have sustainable South Sudan. And the good part is I didn't know that we have Rotary Club, and I was able to connect with Rotary Club of Juba, and we have an MOU. So thank you for the support, and I'm gonna stop right here. And next year, go to RI conference in Australia. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you both for sharing that. We appreciate you representing us. Well, at this time in the program, I am going to turn it over to our president, David Gracie.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. It is great to be with everybody today. I especially would like to welcome Phoebe and Richard. I'm so glad you all are here. We've enjoyed so much. We actually had our board meeting yesterday evening, and many of us were talking about how fortunate we are to have found the CADE and the wonderful partnership that we've enjoyed here. It's been a great place for us, so welcome. I also have a special guest that I'd like to welcome, and I decided to wait and welcome him from the podium because he is one of us. He is a fellow Rotarian, a member of our club for 14 years, Charles, 14 years, instrumental in Rotary Leadership Institute, a big time leader in the district. He's just a great Rotarian. I'm so glad Charles is here. And I was talking to Melanie before the meeting began, and I told Melanie I wanted to introduce Charles from the podium because I have in my pocket a business card holder that Charles gave me, maybe 12 years ago, 13 years ago when I joined. And it's neat because it has the object of Rotary printed in it. I left the card holder in my truck, of course, when I realized this, but I've got it here. I just want to read this second object. And this is something that we don't hear this a lot. We hear a lot about, our theme, the four-way test. But the object of Rotary, I'm going to summarize and just read the second object. And I think this says a lot about Charles and a lot about Rotarians who are business owners and involved in the community. High ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of what Rotary does, bringing in business owners and the service we're able to do for the community. And I think it says a lot about the kind of person that I see Charles as. So please, let's welcome Charles Allen. Okay. Thanks for allowing me to do that, Charles. I'll tell you, again, we did have a great board meeting last night. It was a unique board meeting, the last one of the year, and there are no funds request approvals or anything like that to tell you about, but I'll just tell you that we are excited for the transition. We had board members that are coming on join us, and we had all of our board from this year, the departing board members we recognized, and we've got a great cohesive transition about to happen with President-elect Greg Young. He's going to be awesome up here, and I'm excited to support Greg and to continue to serve this club. Thank you also. The last thing I want to mention, thank you, Greg and Jacob and Richard Allen, 3 awesome delegates at the Rotary International Convention in Houston. You guys represented the club beautifully. And Jacob, where are you? Partner, here you are. So yeah, last week in your absence, I just wanted to mention to everyone that you guys were there representing us. And we threw up the photo of you with Rotary International President Shaker Mehta. And we were talking about that a little bit, Eric and I, and we were wondering, was that photo before or after you asked him the 2-part question after his speech? And anyway, I just think that speaks to the kind of guy Jacob is. He goes up and shakes the hand of the RI president. So that was cool. Okay, guys, we've got a great program today. And in the interest of transparency, I'll let you know that our planned speaker, Dr. Michael Oken, got stuck over in Switzerland. And yeah, Asha and I were joking about this. There are worse places to be stuck. But anyway, he wasn't able to speak. Fortunately, we've got someone like Eric Godet running programs, and Eric was able to scramble and get an awesome program put together for us. I know you guys are going to enjoy hearing today's speakers. So I'm going to ask Eric to come on up.
Thank you, President David. So it is truly my honor to share with you guys some incredible individuals that have moved to our community that I've had the pleasure of spending some time with last week. And these are folks that I got really close to within a few hours of spending time with them each. And so first, I'm going to call Ash up. So Asher Pura, come on, Ash. Ash is the Director of Football Logistics. But if you just ask anyone in football around Coach Napier, he is, the chief of staff that we got here. So I just want you guys to make sure you put eyes on this guy. Now, second, we have Savannah Bailey. Savannah, would you please come up? Savannah is the Senior Director of Player Personnel of Gator Made. And you're going to learn about what that means. And third, but not least, we have Marcus Castro Walker. That's right. UF Football Director of Player Development and NIL. So At this time, Ash and I are going to probably sit back down. We're going to probably, and even Marcus, and turn it over to Savannah, and then we're going to get started and let them share with you. Okay? Thank you all.
If I had my choice, Ash would stay up here and give y'all a little something about what he does, because it is one thing to be the manager of Mayhem, right? To go through all of the operations, the schedules, the changes, helping figure things out when it comes to football and community relations. So I serve as the Senior Director of Player Relations, which is really a fancy way of saying, how do you develop your men holistically? And usually that position is occupied by a former player or by someone who is a man, has some experience in football, and I am not those things. Clearly not. Whenever recruits ask me, how did you get this job? So this is a great story because my background is in microbiology. So, right, it's one of those, this is living proof that whatever your skill is, it should be transferable, right? And that's the mindset that I like to take with the young men as well. How do you transfer the skills of football and of college into real life context? Not everyone will go to the NFL, but even then the NFL is a job. So how do you prepare them for those things? So we have the opportunity to holistically develop each of our football scholar athletes. So all 130 spend quality time with us and then some, whether it's doing something voluntarily or getting some good, what I like to call vegetables. Maybe that's financial literacy or something that's not as immediately attractive to them. But what does it look like to learn and to really cater to their learning styles? It's one thing to teach or to lecture. It's another to know each individual and how they learn and adapt to that. So at the heart of it, I get to be an educator, and that's what I get to do every single day. So some examples of that, actually this Saturday, we're taking a group of 10 of our guys and 6 women athletes to Greece, right? So something super exciting to do in a broad service trip. Originally, when I first got here, December 28th, I started planning this. And since then, the world has shaken up quite a bit, right? Especially in that part of the world. So for us, it looks, how do you pivot and how do you educate guys into being a world citizen? How do you show that perspective and kind of adapt to those changes? So we'll actually be servicing Ukrainian refugees that are coming through Athens. And so I've made them keep up with the news, read articles, share stories, and really critically look at what it looks like to be a citizen of the world. How do you serve other people and use that servant leadership? One thing that I know about RI is it's not just about being a business leader or an entrepreneur. It's about being a servant leader. How do you service other people? And so I want to instill that in our young men as well. So whether that's here in Gainesville, in their hometowns, or across the world, there's always something that they can be doing to use their impact and influence for the betterment of who they represent, which is truthfully all of Gainesville, all of the University of Florida, their families back home, whoever that is for them. So for me, it's the opportunity to connect with folks like you guys. If it's a local nonprofit to serve at, if it's a potential internship opportunity, whatever it is that we can get our guys engaged in from the personal and professional development side, that's what we're here to do. And from that, I'll pass it over to Marcus Castro Walker.
Thank you guys for having us. Savannah might be the best in the business. I'm not saying might, she is the best in the business. So come in following her. It's hard always, but what she's done in these last few months of us just arriving here is amazing. And yes, Osh does Osh. That's what I call him. And what does Osh do? He does what he does. So he's the man. So my role is director of NIL, name, image, likeness. So what is name, image, likeness? What does that mean? Well, now it's an opportunity for student athletes in college sports to be paid for their name, image, likeness. So essentially, let's just basically look at it as marketing, right? They can do marketing for businesses, for local businesses. We also have these collectives that they can receive money from. So third-party entities that aren't tied directly to the university can now pay our student athletes. So first things first. In our program, we don't look at it as players just getting paid. We look at it as players having the opportunity to build a financial foundation for life. So what that is financial literacy, savings, learning how to do taxes. A lot of this stuff has to do with what's going to happen when you're 40 years old, right? That's our ultimate goal. The programming that Savannah and I do in Gator made, she's preparing them not only for life right now, but also life after football, life as a father, life, as a family member, life as a world citizen. So what I do a lot of is helping these young men prepare for financial life. What's that financial foundation? And they're starting it right now. Right now, they're having the opportunity to learn how to save money in real time, invest money in real time. And also, this was a big thing for me. I remember the first time I did taxes, I didn't know what I was doing, but now they have that opportunity to do so. So not only just that, we have financial planners, we have CPAs that are helping our student athletes manage their money. So let's say they do go to the NFL and make millions of dollars on a contract. They're already comfortable with living a lifestyle and understanding finances at that point, so they don't go broke like a huge percentage of NFL athletes do. So that's one piece. The next piece of it is contracts. A lot of this stuff has contracts written. These players are getting contracts. They're seeing contracts right now that they've never seen before. So I serve as a resource to help, look over a contract. What does it mean? What does it say? Are we reading every piece through it? Simple example of that, I had a student athlete come to me with a contract from a business that wanted him to do a couple of social media posts over the next 6 months. And the contract was a legit contract for $436,000, right? This is the kind of big deal NIL has become. So for this young man, it's like life-changing money. For anybody, that's life-changing money. But here was the kicker in the contract, and this player is, potential first-round draft pick next year. In that contract, it read, "We own 10% of your future earnings." So that's also, a resource. Savannah helps out as well. And then we work with the different people out there. We work with the community. Kind of the biggest thing that I'm charged with is I'm, number one, out trying to raise as much money in the NIL space as possible. Because in college football, this has become a reality. Whether we agree with it or not, it has become a reality. So retaining athletes on your team so they don't transfer to go to other schools. And we can't entice NIL deals with recruiting, but when recruits know what's going on your roster with the current players, that recruits itself. So the more money and support that we have in this NIL space, the better off we'll be. So let me take it back on why I'm so passionate about this. I was a college athlete. I played ball. And then when that was finished, I did not want to coach. I wanted to get into administration. So I actually started as an academic advisor at Arizona State for the football team. I've always been kind of a player guy. I always want to look out for the players. And that was a place to start. While I was at Arizona State, I moved into a director of player development role. Any kind of issue that any of the guys on the roster had off the field, that was kind of what I helped them deal with. And let me tell you, Arizona State was a madhouse for a few years, and we got it together just because of, where it's at. And love that job. And my passion is looking out for guys. So coming into this space, when NIL is now hit, people ask, well, do you lose contact with players, or does that go against kind of your ultimate mission in this space? And I said, no, it's not, because helping young men build a financial foundation, getting out in the community and getting all of our resources together so these guys can build that foundation really will change their life. And not just change their lives, but if we look at the 40-year-old you and we're developing them in that space, their families' lives will be changed. The NFL is not promised. And even if you do make it, 2.5 years is the average. And for a lot of guys, they don't understand that money, is for that couple of years, or, maybe it's only through training camp is not guaranteed. But right now in the college space, we can provide that asset to them where they can build up this foundation. The big thing about what Savannah and I do is we look at internships. Well, when you're finished playing ball, and I remember this, when I finished playing and I got my first job, I was making pennies. Now, luckily, I had saved up money when I was in college, but, I didn't have that much to save, but I saved up a little bit and I was able to get into, a career. But a large part about it is I was accepted into a grad program at Cal. That was my number one choice. And I actually wanted to teach. Like, I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to do research. And I got a scholarship that paid for school, but I couldn't afford the cost of living, right? And I had a daughter as well at the time, so it just was too much for me. So I had another opportunity to do grad school at Arizona State. The financial, piece of it was a bit better for me and for what I had going on, so I was able to pursue that career. But the thing is that if they're able to create this savings right now in college, when they get into that space like I was, they can take that hit and go to wherever they want to go and do that internship or start that job that they're passionate about because they have that backing with the savings they have. So that's how we see NIL is building that foundation so you can do what you want to do and what you're passionate about. Now let's talk about the competitiveness of NIL, because I just threw out a huge contract number out there. What we're trying to do is create essentially a pot, a support, a base to be competitive with the Alabamas, the Tennessees, the Miamis. Florida State's not on our level, so they're not a competitor there. No offense. I was just throwing, something out there. But anyways, the Georgias. But right now, if you guys follow college football at all, you see Saban and Jimbo kind of going at it, right? Well, Saban's upset because now this perfect world that he's been operating in and winning games, now the game has changed. He cannot recruit like he used to because NIL is now an important decision maker when recruits are coming to campus. Just like us, if I was offered a job, I always say this, in North Dakota today, right as I walked out this meeting for $1 million a year, I'm sorry, like I love you guys, but I love my family, right? And I have to take that opportunity. It's the same space that these recruits are in. It's the same space our players are in, is whoever has the most lucrative NIL program and support is going to get the best talent. And the thing that I like about here is not only are we recruiting great talent, but we have a great operation program and people in place to develop them and be great NFL players or great citizens, not just in our community, but around the country and in the world. So in order to win in this space, and obviously when you're winning games, what that does to a community, especially a community like Gainesville, where it is a lot of the community is surrounded, like the university is the center of this place. If you start winning games, the whole community, it booms. And so in order for that to happen, we need to be very, very well off in this NIL space. The Gator Collective is how you get involved. I work with the Gator Collective on a daily, just communicating with them and making sure that their operation is up, running smoothly, and they do things right. They're compliant. So if you want to know how to get involved, Gator Collective, they're compliant and everything they do is legally sound. And they are really good at helping our players out and setting them up with contracts, with events, and getting them out in the community. So the collective is like a fan experience deal. If you're a member of the collective, you get kind of exclusive access to the players. And it's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, the collective pays our athletes, and that's how we kind of get the talent and keep the talent. Transfer portal opened up. Well, when the transfer portal opens up, it's like free agency. So somebody could come to our roster and say, hey, we'll pay your quarterback $500,000 to come to Michigan. And that's what's happening. It's illegal, but it's happening. So what we need to be able to do is be able to counter things like that in order to keep our talent. And this is really happening. I mean, it's crazy. It's outrageous. Don't agree with a lot of it, but it's the reality and we have to face it. So in order to be competitive, we have to be competitive in the NIL space. How you do it, Gator Collective is the best one. I could say if we got our community behind this, and I think that's the best way to do it. Other schools have donors that give, maybe 1 or 2 donors, but having a community behind this is more important and I think is more sustainable moving forward. So if we had so many businesses, whatever amount, give $1,000, $2,000 a month to the collective, well, boom, then your roster is taken care of. Your players are happy. Savannah is doing a phenomenal job developing them, helping them learn how to be financially sound and build that foundation. So that's a lot about what we do. I think we'll want to give this time for questions if anybody had any.
You mentioned the collective. What is going to be the role of the Gator Guard, and can that or should that be regulated?
So I can tell you right now, the Gator Guard they actually do a good job. They're a more private deal. I know with the Gator Guard, they work closely with the collective as far as, making sure everything's compliant and running through. So it is legit. The Gator Guard is looking for like $250,000 donations at a time. So that's a smaller group. And if that's the space that you want to get involved in, just come see me and I can tell you. But that's the collective is more of a reasonable program to be a part of. And I actually sustainable. So yeah, the collective. But Guard is also involved.
Question. The whole idea brings up commercialism and bidding for the talent that we have. I want your philosophic comment on where we're going with a commercialized athletic program.
So that is like a discussion I've had, when you're sitting watching, around the room at night watching TV. We talk about this all the time. It's not going anywhere right now. The bidding is highly illegal, but it's happening. And so the NCAA is going to have to come in and put some type of parameter around it. But honestly, I don't know how much they'll be able to get their hands around it, because the commercialism of it and the lawyers involved and the rights to the players is so strong right now that the NCAA would not necessarily be able to win that. They could. But just right now, the way it looks like that's going to continue to happen. Now, the bidding piece of it, that's going to be regulated. I know that the NCAA is already investigating certain programs. Thankfully, not us, because we've done it right. But that's already starting to go into motion. Now, here's the problem: is these people bidding? It's not the universities. It's these boosters. It's these private companies. Well, there's no real penalty to the private company or the booster, but there's penalty to the student athlete. So when I'm having conversations with parents of recruits that are telling me what's going on, I tell them to stay away from that as much as you can, because at the end of the day, they'll get a slap on the wrist and your son will lose his eligibility. So that'll be regulated, but the collective space isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on that question. There's two kinds of bidding, as you probably intonated earlier, that bidding at the high school going up level, and then of course bidding year over year for current players. That's maybe more within your purview to control. And like you said, win by outbidding, but is there going to be any kind of regulation to keep that from getting out of control? Because that seems to be where it's headed.
So like a salary cap?
Yeah, or something. Or just a period where they can't bid your players and recruit your players or give them offers.
Right. I mean, if we look at kind of the old days of football where people were doing things that were illegal, I'm not saying it still could be happening, but money under the table. Now all that has become legal on the table, but they found loopholes, right? The bidding piece, they're trying to regulate it, but you can only do so much. So I don't know if that's going to go anywhere, but I think what could happen is creating a cap. Yes, you can create a cap. Maybe athletic departments take it in-house, and that's a whole nother mess where they become employees, right? Union, that's a mess. But they take it in-house, create a cap, and start paying the players. But here's the thing: NIL will still be around. So even though we have a cap and we can pay our roster, well, if NIL is still around, because that's not going to go anywhere, you're still going to have this issue. So yes, maybe a cap could be brought in-house, maybe, but then NIL, it's a free market. And when it comes to advertisement, it's a free market. So that's going to be tough to get regulated.
And I think kind of getting away from just the dollar figures, right? At the heart of it, NIL was created to do what? Somebody tell me. Yeah, to let guys profit off of their name, image, and likeness. So that looks like advertisement deals, or if EA Sports wants to use your face in their digital video game, or maybe you get a percentage of the TV contracts because you're the star of the show, right? So it's that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be based on just how you keep a roster and how you do those things. It is supposed to be recognition for what they do. When you look at, I'll ask, how many hours is a full-time job per week? 40, right? Technically. You want to guess how many hours a week football players spend doing practice, film, weights, recovery, eating, taking care of their body, and going to school? Quite a bit more than 40 is what we'll say. So it's one of those things of thinking of as a job and investing them in that way. And I think that's what the heart of it really is. And I know people like to talk about what you can and can't do in the dollar figures, but that's more kind of bringing it back almost to that question about philosophically, what are you trying to do? We're trying to respect the players for what they've been able to provide and bring into our university, into our communities.
So I have a question. And I know that NIL is all sports, but as far as football, certain positions, certain people are more attractive, obviously, than others. What is realistic percentage-wise? So if you take a full roster, NCAA football, what's realistic for that roster to actually be under NIL contracts? And what would your goal be with, say, the University of Florida?
So are you asking dollar amount? Like what would be the goal? The entire roster. That's the goal. Right now we're about 80%. Everybody has done an NIL deal and has been paid in the NIL space, everybody on the roster. But as far as being able to set your roster up where no matter who you are on the roster, everyone is getting, $2,000-$3,000 a month. That's where we want to get. Now that's a large number, but you look at, and then walk-ons too. We want to make sure that we can take care of walk-ons at $2,500 a month, because $2,500 a month can cover their tuition. And walk-ons are busting their tails. And a lot of them are some of the best character guys on the team, and they deserve that. So where we're working to get is everyone on the roster making a monthly salary, and not only that, but because it's an NIL deal, they have to do work for pay. So getting them out connected in the community, doing, service work or doing fan experience, that's what they'll be doing. So that's when I talk about, if we can get, over the span of a year, I know it seems like a lot, but $5, $10, $15 million, then we can do that with the entire roster. And the actual number that would be ideal, there's a program out there, and I'm not going to disclose, at 18 million. There's a program, in the next state up and the next state over, that's around 10 to 12 million in the NIL area. Then you have Texas A&M that has, realistically, they reported 30, they have 23 million. This is strictly in the space of NIL. So that's where we need to get that up, but I think we have the best plan and support for it.
I think bringing that also back to skills, right? Because you have to be marketable. Maybe you're not the marquee guy, or maybe you are the marquee guy, but you're a terrible public speaker, right? No one really wants to hire you for an advertisement if you're going to mumble through it. And same thing for maybe the walk-on guy. Maybe he has personality out the wazoo and is ready to represent and do things in a high fashion, right? So all of those life skills pieces, their marketability, their public speaking, their financial knowledge, all of those things also contribute to their NIL successes. We've had different examples of sometimes the guys who never touch the ball, or sometimes it's folks that are on special teams, right? That only play for certain seconds or certain plays. And they're the ones that are making that money because they have a niche, right? That's totally different than other people. We have a guy on our team from Australia. He has an Australian accent. While he can't benefit from NIL being an international student, which gets into some other stuff, he still is able to kind of create a brand and audio things, and people love to listen to him, and he's funny, right? So what is that marketable trait that you have, and how can we help pull that out, help train and hone those natural skills that you have to also contribute to your success in the NIL space? I think it was him.
I have a question. A moment ago, you mentioned if you were offered the $1 million job in North Dakota and all of that. It seems like with this change, it's going to bring in that sort of dynamic with the players. And I'm wondering if you could speak like philosophically how you see things changing. In the old days of recruiting, It may have been about playing time or winning championships and that sort of thing. If you were a player and you were offered that $1 million spot in North Dakota and someone said, oh, but wait, because you'll get to play here, or we'll win a championship, or whatever the more traditional types of recruiting were, you may say, yeah, that's nice, but I can't buy groceries with any of that. How does that change the complexion of the recruiting of the teams, even of winning and losing? Do kids care like they used to care about winning? If they get the $1 million in North Dakota, who cares who wins the SEC? I got $1 million. How does that change things?
No, that's a great question. So we're seeing both. Recruiting has shifted. I would say when it depends on the family, depends on what their values are. There's a handful of people that are strictly focused on the money. Now they're all competitors. They're going to compete and they want to win. But there's a group of them that are focused on the money and, hey, what am I going to make here? And I can't tell them what they're going to make there. Yes, that's illegal, but I can tell them what our current roster is doing, right? So they're asking that question. That's what they want to know. They're not worried about a facility, or other things. They want to worry about how much money they're going to get. That's just a group. The other group, and I think when you look at the big time recruits, your 5 stars, your 4 stars, the really talented recruits, when they come in, they are worried about your facility, the coaching, the playing time, the championships, right? They take all of that into consideration. And then they take in NIL. So they're looking for the school that has everything they want and need, right? What can provide them the best opportunity outside of NIL, not in the picture. Then they narrow it down to, the 2 to 3 schools that all kind of have that similar opportunity for them to be great, and then NIL kicks in. So it's like that final piece. Now, there are still student athletes out there that just want to play football. They want to, play in the SEC. They want to come to Florida, and play here. But that is dwindling down a little bit. I will say this, and Savannah, you can attest, the guys that we have on our roster with really lucrative deals have actually taken football a lot more serious. They've taken out off the field a lot more serious. They're carrying themselves in a much more professional manner, where I was afraid it was going to be the complete opposite. So that actually shocked me, and I'm glad that it's happening. Do you have anything to add?
I think, excuse me. I think also it's a matter of who are you recruiting, right? Not just the kind of player, but the kind of person. And that's something that I would say definitely starts from the top down. So whether that be from Scott Strickland or from head coach Billy Napier, who does he want on his roster? What type of person is he looking for? And we have the opportunity to have a phenomenal recruiting staff that get to find these folks, that get to host these folks and show them what it means to be a Gator. So this past weekend, I was at breakfast with a 5-star and his mom. And she said, thank you for talking to me like a person, because my son can't be bought. And it's small things like that that make all the difference, whether it be on the staff side, the recruit family side. And I know that might be like a touchy-feely answer when, it's away from money, and that's kind of how I feel about things. But I want to make sure that that's reiterated. The type of person that you have in the program and the type of person you're recruiting for the program matters so much more into their values, right? There are some situations we understand money can be life-changing for them and their families. And we would never fault someone for choosing those options. But what does it look like to be able to have both? And that's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Great question. My friend Chad Keene here and Kim Naoni. So going back to your point about international students, those of us who immigrated here and were students in the past, international, know that you were only limited to work X amount of hours on campus. You could not have any job that was commercial because visas don't allow that. So I think of all the student athletes that we have. There's one that'll go nameless that is a great golfer and is getting a lot of attention. So somebody like that in this, they could have lucrative deals and make a ton of money that can help them when they go back home. But our laws don't allow that or make it rather difficult. I'm curious what you all are doing to try to navigate that, because it doesn't seem like a lot of folks around the country have any idea how to deal with the international student athlete question.
And so in that space, there's only so much we can do. Like at the end of the day, while we're very happy to be your esteemed guest, we are just two people that work in football, right? And you're talking about a law, right? Something that we don't necessarily have any combatants with. But for me, that looks like really open communication and still working on their marketing abilities. So we have, like I said, a young man from Australia. So we worked on his marketing campaign and tried to make sure that things were connected back to his home, right? And how is he generating an interest in football as a sport in his hometown and being that hometown hero? And then here, also working with our compliance department to say, well, can he host something that's nonprofit based? Can he host something that generates money for local organizations or for an organization that he cares about? He wants to partner with former players and do stuff with Shands. It's things like that, that he's trying to find those other opportunities. While it's not the same as some other folks, right now, we don't have that piece. And you're right, people probably are directly avoiding that question because most folks depend, especially in the world of football, depend on not necessarily having a lot of international students. But then you look at other sports, that's primarily your whole roster. So what does it look like to support them in that space? And to me, it's still creating that marketability and that brand so that they can carry those things over. It's more skills based and less direct dollar amount, but how do you make sure those things are translatable? Does that help?
I wonder where the buck stops. Does Billy, the head ball coach, know what every player gets? Does Scott Strickland know? Does the president of the university know? I mean, it's what's been surprising to me is how quiet this has been kept. It's like it's out there circling around, and we hear, Saban and Jimbo going at it, but you read in the press. But it's interesting that you don't hear any of this about what players are getting. So, does Billy Napier, is he the final man to approve what a player gets, or is it Strickland, or who is it?
So I can answer that question. We can't have any say in what the players receive. So we have no final say in numbers. Whatever, contract, the athletic department. Yes. Now, I can say this, between the conversations I have with the athletic director, Coach Napier, and myself, we kind of know the market value of what our athletes are, right? Now, we can't tell them to pay this, ex-athlete this amount, but I can definitely call the collective, and that's why I talk to them so much every day about, hey, we hear this is the market value for this position. We hear this is the market value for this. It's your decision whether you want to put this young man on this contract or not, but we just wanted to keep you, up on the situation. So yes, there is. Eddie Rojas is the founder. Now these are two people, right? These are two people, and we've kind of helped them take off in the last 6 months. Eddie Rojas is the founder, and then Jen Grasso is the attorney. Jen essentially does all the operations. They run the website, they run all the players' events, they run the contracts, and they make the decisions on what people make. And I'm in communication with Jen on what everyone's contract is, knowing. Eddie Rojas, he is a bull Gator. He's not as big of a donor as other donors we have, but he's a big Gator, and he's making his money from his financial business that's worth about a lot of money. So he started this because he wanted to win. So if you're giving money to the collective, they're not taking your money and paying themselves with it, if that's what you're asking. And I know that because, I see that.
And I think also to your point, going back to kind of teaching professionalism, you wouldn't expect anyone to disclose how much they make, right? That's just not what you do. You don't expect someone to say, oh, well, I make this salary every year. In that same vein, we respect our players that way. We don't share that information. That's their information. And same with our coach. When he talks about NIL, he happily says we're in a great position and keeps it very vague. Personally, because he's not interested in getting into ridiculous fights like Coach Saban and Coach Fisher. That's not the kind of person that he is. He's more interested in, am I doing right by my guys and setting our program up for the future, yes or no? And that's what we stay focused on.
Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Marcus. What a great informative talk. What an interesting time in college athletics, right? Anne Marie Rogers. Interesting time we've got, right? Linda Reinhardt. Interesting what's going on right now. This is the first time I've met you, Savannah, but Marcus and I have talked before. And I'll tell you, what is also interesting to me, hearing you speak before, Marcus, we actually had Jim McLean here about 10 months ago, kind of when NIL was brand new. And you know, everyone's thinking, yeah, how does this thing form over the next year and over the next 5 years? It's fascinating, but you know, now we've got some folks hired since then to specialize in player development. And what a great couple of people to do this. I know that you guys are also on the recruiting trail quite a bit, and I'm glad for that. I think one thing that I've heard Marcus say before is that when he's talking to a player, he's not only concerned about the NIL deal, but he's interested in in getting that player to understand what are you going to be when you're 40. That's what we're interested in developing the player into a young man. I think that's really important. And to something you said, Savannah, I'm glad that we've got someone like Billy Napier, not one of the other two that you mentioned. We're fortunate to have him, and we're fortunate to have you guys. I have got a Rotary coin that each side of it just kind of gives you some perspective about what Rotary is. The front of it is our Rotary motto, which is service above self. And the back of it is our four-way test, which is something that guides us in everything we think, say, or do, our interactions professionally and personally. We ask, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Let's give Marcus and Savannah another round of applause. Okay, everybody, thank you all for being here today. Our winning ticket for the 50-50 drawing is 024. 024. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday.